Yeah, Pyrrho, maybe it was wrong to uh, describe your perception-based philosophy, your perception-based skepticism, as if it were concerned with salvation. You never, you never claimed as much, and perhaps there is no salvation because nothing underlies the appearances, and I think I'm compelled to disagree with that. Uh, that nothing underlies the appearances, and that there is a more permanent realm of form and of idea that underlies the world of appearances. And, of course, that's not a very popular thing to say in our uh, modern technological uh, and uh, materially oriented society. But I think it still needs to be said, perhaps especially so in our age, our industrial age of consumption based on the accumulation of purely material value, what we perceive to be purely material value, even though money is purely symbolic. Uh, its its value depends on our interpretation and our social agreement, not on some intrinsic relationship to real food and shelter and real happiness, which we so easily believe is somehow attainable by the accumulation of money. So I think, contrary to what the popular uh, belief, doxa, may be, I think Platonism is um, important for our time, perhaps more than any other uh, idea, system of ideas, or mode of thinking. And I think Plato wasn't a systematizer. Aristotle was far more so. Plato was a visionary thinker who, in his dialogues, thought through ideas not to arrive at some final set of propositions which might provide them to all other explorers, intellectual and spiritual explorers after him. But rather, he was chronicling his dialectical journey through an evolution of ideas. And at the end, he would always have Socrates remind the reader that we've arrived, through all of this question and answer in the dialogue, we've arrived only where we began. And it seems that all we can say for certain is that the knowledge that we desire transcends the sensory realm and the realm of language, even of geometry. You know, certainly the Platonic tradition is the Pythagorean tradition in mathematics and geometry, an understanding of ratio and rhythm, really, harmony, proportion. These were, not understood by most in the way that they're understood by most physicists today. They were understood more in a numinous, mystical sense because they put the human mind in connection with the phenomena of nature. An intuition of the music of the spheres underlying the appearance of the wandering lights that we tracked in the sky gave us uh, a sense that there was something behind those appearances, something more ideal, something more divine. Um, and I want to read two paragraphs from Owen Barfield's book, Saving the Appearances, a study in idolatry. This book should be studied by everyone. It's written in 1965, but this is from a chapter 7, called Appearance and Hypothesis, where he describes Plato's 3 stages of knowledge. According to Plato, there were 3 stages or degrees of knowledge. The first and lowest amounted to no more than observation. Since all that we perceive is continually changing, coming into being and passing away, this kind of knowledge, by observation alone, grasps nothing permanent and nothing, therefore, which can properly be called truth. At the opposite pole, the highest degree, which is the only one that can properly be called knowledge, is wholly extrasensory. It is the contemplation by pure intelligence of the divine ideas, and above all of the supreme good. The union of these two, that is, of pure intelligence and sense knowledge, gives rise to an intermediate mental activity, which Plato stigmatized as bastard, although he insisted on all his pupils studying it as a preparation and a means to the true knowledge. This intermediate activity was geometry, or, as we should now say, mathematics. These 3 degrees of knowledge corresponded with 3 different levels of astronomy. The astronomy of observation merely records the movements of the stars, the sun, the moon, and the planets, without attempting to account for them or reduce them to any system. From this we can rise to the second astronomy, which seeks to account for the apparently arbitrary movement of, for instance, the planets, by supposing regular geometrical patterns to underlie them. By the existence of this celestial geometry, we can render ourselves capable of rising eventually to the third and highest, that is, to the only true knowledge, which is an unobscured participation in the divine mind, word, or logos itself. The real wisdom, as distinct from its not wholly unworthy outcome in the permanent truths of geometry, manifests itself only to him who participates in, however slight, a degree of the pure and divine intelligence. This intelligent participation, the privilege of philosophy, and in the last resort of initiation, was not mystical, for mystical experience is essentially other than ordinary experience. But the Platonic or Aristotelian participation, which was true knowledge, was simply the half-conscious participation of every man, the participation by virtue of which he was a man, cleared of the gross and bewildering mutability which is plastered over it by the other approach, through the senses. So it's this idea of participation that Barfield is mentioning here that I think is important to recognize about Plato's thought, and it's not often included in this generic criticism of idealism as separating a static realm of forms from a flowing world of perception and experience. For Plato, knowledge was and is an experience. It's a participation of the human mind in the phenomena. It's the human mind knowing the phenomena as they arise, because it participates in their arising. And what appears to our senses in and of itself is not enough to give us this knowledge. Rather, it's the forms of intuition, we could say, as Kant would, that allow what we conceive of abstractly as a realm of bare, self-existing sensory impressions to take shape and meaning. And you say that we recognize patterns. I have to go on to another video.